Hello, fine people of the world. Welcome to the Best of Book Marketing podcast. I am Paulette Stout, and this is the incomparable Lainey Cameron, who is getting us live on Instagram. And we are so happy to have you with us today to talk about AI for authors. You know, it's a very kind of scary topic. It's a very controversial topic in writing spaces. And we just thought it was an important subject for us to bring to you and kind of share our perspectives. And then you can, as always, make your own choices and do what's right for you. So we can start with some updates since I've been blah blahing. I don't know if you want me to go
first. We have such cool news, so forgive us here because we're probably going to go 4 or 5 minutes with the updates because we have really cool stuff to share. Yes. I'll start with, before we go into our personal updates, this podcast won its first award. In fact, twice. It won 2 different awards, which we're celebrating.
I missed the second one. What was the second one?
Right. So it was the Positive Change Podcast Awards, and we won Best Marketing Podcast. Woohoo! And Best Co-host Team. You and I got Best Co-host.
That's right. Category.
And that one just makes me smile so much. So, and also the fact that it's Positive Change Awards, it's Speak Up Talk Radio, but they recognize podcasts that are out there trying to help other people. And I feel like that is what we're here for. We're here to help our fellow authors and to be recognized that we're a great team and we feel like we're a great team and we're having so much fun doing this. It just was, it meant a lot to us. So we won 2 different categories from the Positive Change Awards, podcast awards. So that's our first announcement.
Yay for us.
Okay, Paulette, what's going on with you other than, is there an award you haven't won with your book in the last 3 weeks?
Yes, there were 3 I didn't play. We talked about this in our book, in our episode on writing awards, episode 105, but book awards are part of my marketing strategy. I do apply for a lot of them. So I'm very happy since our last episode. I think I've won 3 or 2. I'm not sure on my new book, what we give away. Shameless plug as always. It's the book marketing podcast. And, that was really cool. So to win in, I won an IPPY, won American Writing Fiction Awards. And I'm just really excited that the book is resonating with readers and with judges. And it just helps, especially as an independent author, kind of attest to that third-party validation of the quality and stuff. So besides that, I'm just, kind of at the end of my first rewrite draft of Love Only Better, my first novel. And I'm just really so happy that I went this route. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a supercharged engine for my book marketing to have a really confident in my first book. So that's going to, I'll turn that marketing engine on later this year once the book is out. But the second edition, but I think it's a good thing to think about if you write in a series to, think, is that book as good as it can be? And are you getting the read through that you want from your other books? Also had an amazing writing retreat with some local friends here in the New England area. And it was just such a nice to be in person with fellow writers who kind of understand what you're going through. They get your vibe, they understand your pain, and then you can kind of talk about collaborations and having that community. We talk about that, especially in the age of AI, as we're going to talk about today. I just did want to also give a huge shout out to Lainey, who did something really beautiful the other day that just made me a little teary when I saw it. She made a reel on Instagram and TikTok, and she took my post that announced my award wins and she made it into one really amazing video with music. And it's just, that's community, y'all. That's what caring looks like. And I just wanted to publicly thank Lainey because it just really meant so much.
And thank you. And sometimes you see an opportunity to do something for another writer and you're like, should I do it, not do it? Do it. Why not? They're going to appreciate it. They're going to see that you appreciate them, their work, what they're doing for the community. And I'll just say a quick note on retreats, because I agree, retreats are phenomenal. And our sponsor is organizing. Our sponsor is Lynn Golodner, and she is organizing a retreat here where I am in San Miguel in January next year. So if you've been thinking that you might want to treat yourself to a writer's retreat, that's an amazing one to go look at. We've got all the information on our website, on all of our posts on Substack, but I can only recommend coming to San Miguel. It is magical. Some people believe that there's crystals under the city, and that's why it has so much creative energy. I'm not necessarily that person, but I will tell you that it has an amazing vibe, and the place where the retreat's taking place is just gorgeous. The guest house and the itinerary, and it includes so many things. So if you're thinking about a retreat, that's really a good one. It's in January 26th, and they're down to their last 1 or 2 spots at this point in time. So
Cool.
I guess I'll do my update, or go for it.
Your update. No. Go ahead. Go up your update.
Okay, so my updates, other than the podcast award, which super excited about, and all of Paulette's awards, super excited about, I got my rights back to my first novel that came out 5 years ago from my publisher, which is this one. And I'm going to show you the cover if you're on the video version of the podcast, because it's the last time you'll see it. I am in the middle of redesigning with an agency the cover for this book, and it's going to look really, really different. I already have a great analysis of why this isn't the perfect cover for the book. It's very soft. It's very soft focus. It's very friendshipy vibe. We're going to go with something much more hard hitting, much more bold, much more capturing the feminist themes. I got the first drafts yesterday. So as we go, we will share. I'll share a little of that process. And actually the agency that I decided to work with, Demonza, they're coming on the podcast in September. And we're going to talk about how do you design the best cover for your book. And I will happily share all the inside details of the process, having just gone through it myself. So it's going to be kind of fun. So I'm very excited about that. I am formatting it in Vellum. I'm going to self-publish it. I'm working on my keywords, my Amazon categories, all the things it takes to self-publish your novel. I'll be doing Amazon ads for the first month that it goes live. So very, very excited. Probably it will be the second half of July is my guess by the time it goes live and we get the cover and everything. But as soon as I get a final cover, I'll put it up on pre-order as an ebook, and just super exciting. Simultaneously, I am still working on my second novel, which is called Erasing Grace. It's about an adventure travel Instagrammer with a dark secret past. And yeah, it's a fun one. And that book is actually going to go out to beta readers by the second half of July. So I'm on track to send it out to my beta readers. Paulette is going to be one. Thank you, Paulette. I've got a few people lined up, and it's kind of nice because knowing that they're waiting makes me want to get it done. And so I'm kind of in the beginnings of like getting this version done that it will go out to betas. And I think that's everything for me, except that I moved house to a new place. We got a new house in San Miguel, which is a little bit bigger, that has guest space, which is very exciting for me to be able to have my office and also have space for guests to come stay. Because right now we have to give up our offices, which is not ideal. So very excited. We moved in this week. It's mayhem, total mayhem right now, but it'll calm down in a little bit. So let's get into artificial intelligence for authors, because we have lots of strong opinions on this. No. We have one more thing before we go.
Sorry.
I told you we had so much cool stuff. We have talked forever about how we use the term life is lifey. And for like 6+ months, we've said, we're going to make shirts, we're going to make merch. And Paulette's like done it. She did it. She made merch. So Paulette, do a quick show and tell. Show us the merch that's available on the store.
So we have merch. We have this is a coffee mug. Life gets lifey sometimes. They all say life gets lifey sometimes. And if there's other things you want on the shirts, let us know. I have a little notebook. I've been loving this notebook. It's got kind of like a box lines on the inside, and I've been using it for some personal things in the books, even though I don't have long hands. We have t-shirts, we have water bottles, we have, socks, we've got a tote bag, we've got a hat. I think we have a hat. Not sure. Anyway, it is everything that you buy. It'll get made and sent right to you. And there's different shipping in different countries. So if you're not in the United States, there should be a shipping location that's near you. And also, whatever little proceeds we get will help support the funding of the podcast. This isn't free. We're paying out of pocket for this. This is not something we're doing to get rich. So if you want to support the podcast, you want to get some good merch, hop over to our site on Foursquare. You can access it through our Substack account. And we'll also link it in the podcast notes.
Yay. Okay.
Yay.
Artificial intelligence.
No.
Oh my God, we have so much good stuff to share. Okay, let's do it. So Paulette, why don't you kick us off, just for those who are still going like, I see it in the headlines everywhere. What is it again?
Right. So just in super, super simple terms, artificial intelligence is basically computer programs that are made to think like people. And what they do is they can execute different requests based on questions you ask. You say, do this, please. And the computer goes and does it, whether that's creating prompts, creating pictures, creating text, and, computer code. Some companies are using it, but, there's lots of different things that it can generate, called generative AI, which is generative artificial intelligence. And that's mostly what we're going to be talking about today is generative AI. There's lots of different AI. It's been around for decades, so it's not new. And I know it's controversial in some circles, but there are just a lot of really good, legitimate reasons to use it. And not all platforms have gotten their code for the training illegitimately. A lot of them are making deals with like news outlets and book publishers, and there's a lot of good content out there that it's been based on, so you don't have to feel like you're illegitimate giving it a chance.
Yeah, and I think there's like, from my perspective, two big areas of controversy that come up. One is, where did the training materials come from for the AI that you're using? And there's lots of different AI options out there. We're going to talk about some of them. So how did it get trained? And did they come about the materials that trained it legitimately, as in they paid to license those materials, or did they rip off books and not pay anybody, which has been the big controversy? The other thing is, very often with AIs, this is not absolute, but very often with AIs, you don't know the source of the writing. And so when you ask it to write something, you don't know if it's taking writing from some other person and using it, or where it got that. And so that's where the other big controversy is. And we're going to talk about, well, how do you manage around that, right? There are ways to manage around that. But that's the other thing that's kind of controversial still, I think, from my perspective, is not knowing the source. And that's not always the case when you're doing research. Some of the platforms will actually show you all the sources. Some of them don't, which makes you suspicious of like, well, can I trust this information? And so that's kind of, from my perspective, the two big controversial things. And, the other thing is this idea of like, is it fair to write using AI, right? Is it cheating, right? And that's kind of a third little level of controversy. And we'll try and talk through all of these. And let's start with, just for us, what we think, what platforms we use, and our take on kind of what we think is okay and not okay, just personally what we've decided to do. And do you want to lead us off there, Paulette?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I am not using artificial intelligence to draft my books. And, that is not an okay practice. I work for a software company and we have our own AI guidelines, and that is not okay by anybody's standard. So, we are all aligned on that. What you can do is to use it for research purposes. You can use it for outlining. You can use it for drafting copy for marketing purposes. You can do it for creating images. So for things, I write a lot of multicultural characters and interracial characters, and I just can't even find stock photography that is, ethnic people that look like my people. So, in a way, it's giving me an opportunity to access marketing materials that I couldn't otherwise access. It's also a really great tool for people who have different, neurodiverse or different challenges, and it's making writing accessible to people who sometimes can't just sit and look at a keyboard. If you can voice a prompt into something and do something. So it's, you need to think about the opportunities that it's opening up for people who couldn't necessarily access writing, and given their own medical situation as well.
Yeah, and I'm in a similar place in that, first off, I tend to be an early adopter. So I tend to be the person who's willing to go try stuff out before it's easy, before it's proven. I'm not the very earliest adopter. I don't want the version that's going to fail on me halfway through that's still beta, but I am kind of on the early end of the curve. So I will tell you that for me, I do not use AI from writing my novels either. Now, a lot of writers do, and I'm not judging, okay? So I am not going to say you're bad for doing that. I'm just saying, for me personally right now, I don't feel like I can get over the plagiarism thing of not knowing whether I'm plagiarizing someone's work. And it's not going to tell me, by the way, this line was taken from another writer or modified or learned from this other place. And so for me personally, I just don't feel comfortable using something if I can't be 100% sure I'm not plagiarizing. And I can't right now with any of the eyes be 100% sure that I'm not plagiarizing something that is, the same line as another author with one word changed. I have no way to know that, right? Like I could start Googling lines. It's going to be really hard. So for me personally, I don't use it to write my novels, but I use it to write a lot of other things. I use it to take our content from the podcast. So it's taking our transcript, which is our conversation, and then create things based on that. And I feel very comfortable doing that because A, it's public information. So I'm not uploading my book to an AI in the sky that I don't know what it's doing with it, right? So that's another issue that comes up. So it's public information. That AI could go find that transcript live on the web on our website at bestofbookmarketing.com. And so I don't feel like I'm giving it information it couldn't get anyway. And then I'll ask it to create social media posts, create captions, create blog posts. I use it to create carousels for social media, tips articles, all kinds of stuff based in our original content. And I feel perfectly fine about that. I don't feel like I'm doing anything that is ethically wrong there. People feel free to disagree with me, but because it's our content to start with, I don't worry about that. And it's public content is the other thing. So that's what I use it for. I use it a lot for the marketing of my own books. As I'm republishing this one, I'm actually going to talk you through some of the prompts and how some of the exact ways that I'm using it as I republish my book to rewrite some of my materials, some of my marketing materials, like getting to new taglines and copy and helping with the new cover. Lots of different ways I'm using AI as I go through that process. So I think that might be interesting to people as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's one thing to keep in mind if you are using AI for drafting, you really should make it a practice to rewrite almost every sentence. Like it's good for a start, but a lot of the different algorithms can tell, like if you've copied it from someplace. And then if you don't change the content, you can go upload it to if you're an indie author, Amazon, you give it to your publisher and they'll do checks and they could find that some of the copy was taken from someplace else. So even if you do use AI for drafting initial drafts of your work, you really should plan on making it substantially yours thereafter.
Yeah, completely agree. And you also have to disclose it. If you upload a book to Amazon that's written using AI, you have to disclose it, including if the cover is done using AI graphics. So just be aware that that's something you're going to have to disclose at this point. And I think that's good that companies like Amazon are insisting on that. So what platforms do we use? What's the main platform you use today, Paulette?
There's a few. So, for the last many years, I've been using Pro Writing Aid, and that to me is just a fantastic, companion when you're writing. If you listen to Joanna Penn, she always talks about the AI assisted artisan author. And that's kind of the approach I take, which is it's helping me make my books better. It's helping me find, I've started the last three sentences with the same word, or I found the word pop for some reason. I'm very into the word pop, just word repetition. You haven't used enough sensory words, all different things, lots of different things. So I really love Pro Writing Aid. From an image generation, there's I'm really using two places. One is Deposit Photos, which is a stock photography library, and they have like an unlimited query system within their packages of, you buy so many images or whatever, and you get like these unlimited prompts. Also in Canva, you can do image generations. Theirs is just a credit-based system, and you'll see that in a bunch of places that the AI image generation is based on credits. So, kind of use both of those, but then for just research and, some mild outlining and bulleting, and, I use it in my work every day. Perplexity.ai it's trained on all the major models. It's on Google, on, OpenAI, on Claude. It's got all of them in it. So it's like a one-stop shop to get the best goodness of a whole bunch of different ones. So that's really my favorite just for general AI queries things.
And for me, I'm using a lot of different tools that use AI. So I'm also using Pro Writing Aid profusely. Pro Writing Aid is great for me because I have this ability to write like sentences that go for a whole paragraph that are like, I don't know, like 150 word sentences. And because it made sense to me, right? And so Pro Writing Aid is really good at saying like, this is the ridiculously sticky sentence, Lainey. How about you rewrite that? And then it gives me options and says, how about rewriting it this way or that way or splitting it into five? So I use it to flag, and then I sometimes take its suggestions. Most of the time I go like, yeah, no, let me rewrite that myself. But it helps flag them because I don't notice when I write something that's incredibly convoluted and has like 5 thoughts in a row. That's how I think, I guess. So like probably a little bit of ADD, to be honest. And I just think in like multiples. And so, it like made sense to me on the page, and it's going to make no sense to anybody else at all. They're like this, then that, then that, then that, then that. Oh God. And so
we should do a whole episode on Pro Writing Aid. We've got to get someone on from there.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
That we should do.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
So the AI function where it rewrites your sentences to something more comprehensible is brilliant. I very rarely take exactly what it suggests, but it shows me, it's kind of unlocks your brain because you write something the way that made sense to you. And then you can't get out of that train track because that's what you thought it was supposed to be. And then having a computer saying, but here's 5 other ways you could have done it. It just unlocks that, gets you off the train track and lets you go, oh yeah, I didn't have to do it that way. I could have written it more clearly or simply or started the other way around with the sentence. And so that really helps me. I find that helps me phenomenally, Pro Writing Aid. And some of the other things I use various apps. We can talk more about these. I use a transcription app called Otter AI. I use Opus Clip for video editing. I use Canva. I mostly don't use the image generation yet in Canva. I've tried it a few times, but I did just create an entire website in Canva in 15 minutes, which we'll talk about later, which is kind of amazing. And for actual like research and asking questions, Claude is the platform that I've been using. I find that Claude and ChatGPT are somewhat similar. I think ChatGPT does a slightly better job of learning tone as you go, is one of the things that I've noticed just based on watching what other authors have done too. Claude I like because Claude is very good for analytics, and it's very good at analyzing and market research and that kind of thing. I feel like that's its strength. It's really good for writing really punchy copy as well, kind of marketing copy. ChatGPT, I just think does a slightly bit better job of learning tone. I saw an example recently of a fantasy author who's been talking to it only in fantasy terms, and now it responds to everything with like, yes, oh my dark overlords. I mean, it's totally taken on the tone of fantasy and become a fantasy AI for that author. And so I think you can definitely train ChatGPT to take on a specific tone and only talk to you and produce results against that tone. And that can have value if you're writing in a specific genre and you want, for example, your social media post to have that tone of, dark fantasy every time you write something, for example. So anyway, I think those are some good examples, and we'll get into real good specifics as we go through. And I'm going to actually share some of the prompts that I use on Claude and some of the prompts I've used recently to do research. So let's go from there to a good segue. What the heck is a prompt? And are there different types of prompts? And this one's yours, Paulette. Why don't you take this one?
Yeah. So a prompt is basically a question. And there's lots of different ways to frame the question when you're in one of these tools. So there's I use it, like I said, I use AI a lot at work. I was at Microsoft last week with the Copilot team, and we were having a meeting. And I just want to express to everybody, they're still figuring stuff out too. Like there's stuff that I'm like, how do I do this? And they're like, yep, don't know. Let's figure it out together. So don't feel like you're too late to get on the AI train, because if the people at Microsoft are still figuring it out, then you're fine. You're fine to do it. So in terms of how you ask the question, you want to make sure that the question isn't too short, because then you'll just get a really vague answer that may not be exactly what you're looking for. If you do a really long question, it's kind of like giving someone directions verbally when you're driving. Take a right here, then take a left there, then go to the thing, then go over place at the tree, make a left. Like after a while, the tool will get a little confused and it'll just kind of do what it wants. And you may not get exactly what you want. So there are a few things to keep in mind when you create a prompt. One is the context. What is the target audience that you are, trying to approach? Like I am writing a copy for people who enjoy historical romance of the Regency period, just giving them the context of who you're trying to attract. What is the style? You want it happy, sad, tone, serious, you can say how long you want it. I want one paragraph. I want 5 words. I want 2 words. Be really specific about kind of the output you're hoping to get from it. Give me a list of 10 places my book could be set that has a castle and like a nuclear plant, whatever, it'll just kind of like lists of things is great. And some are better at learning over time from the prompts. So like sometimes that, if you have a subscription or even if you have a free account, they'll keep the stuff in there. And sometimes you like Lainey was saying about the speaking pattern, they'll learn some of your styles, your requests, and then your prompts will get better over time because it'll kind of get it and be able to anticipate what you're looking for.
And I pay for more capacity. So I pay $20 a month for I don't know if it's called Pro version of Claude. Yeah. And it's super worth it to me because I don't want to be limited on how much I can upload to it. And so with the Pro version, I can upload a lot of data to it and it really helps.
Right. And then another piece of prompts are you have the question, but then you're also able to upload files. So if you upload a picture, write me a description of this place. If you can, go the other way, tell me what this place looks like that I've never been to. What are the sounds in the morning at this location, because you've never traveled there before, so there are things like that you can give to it that doesn't have to be. They can also create images. If you want to make me a word cloud of all my reviews so I can see what are the main themes that readers are saying, and then I'll kind of know what's my vibe and I can use those in my marketing ads. So there's lots of ways that you can input content into your question to make the answer come out as you want.
I just did exactly what you're saying. Well, kind of. I was in my opening scene of my second book. It takes place at the Meteora Monastery in Greece. And for the life of me, I couldn't work out how to describe the color of the walls of the monastery. So I'm looking at all these photos on Google, right? And I'm like, how do you describe that? And I asked Claude, I'm like, can you give me 30 different ways to describe the color of the walls of the Meteora Monastery? And it just unlocked it for me, got me off of pink. Like I couldn't get beyond pink. I'm like, it just doesn't fit. Pink doesn't fit with what I'm writing, but I don't know how else to describe it. And so it just kind of, sometimes just brainstorming, getting you off your track really helps. And so I don't know if I actually used exactly any of the ones it gave me, but it gave me so many different variations that it was like no longer pink, if that helps.
Yes, yes. So just one really quick thing on prompts before we go on to the next topic is it is a computer. And so try to not include pleasantries, please and thank you, because funny enough, please and thank you will confuse the computer. And it will also take extra processing time to analyze what the please and what the thank you mean. So just leave any kind of civil conversation out of your prompts so you can get more what you need and save maybe a greener prompt.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm trying, Paulette. I saw this in the notes for the episode, and I'm like, yep, I say please and thank you every single line. I do it. I can't not do it. It just, I'm British. We're I also say sorry. I have apologized to the AI. So I need to work on this. I'm not very good at this.
Yes, you do.
It's just a computer. It's just our slave. Like it just works for us. But yeah, no, I say please and thank you and sorry all the time. So I will try harder. So cool. Let's talk about prompts, and I would more in detail types of prompts. And I would love to give an example of one of these. Do you want me to take this one? The kind of different types of prompts? Okay, so actually, I didn't know some of these names for these. So actually, zero prompt. I take it back. Paulette, you tell us the three types, and then I'll give my example.
These are these are from Microsoft. They have some prompting tools, and I'll see if I can get the deck and like link it in the show notes about like it's just like a little PowerPoint deck on prompting. And they have like different categories for prompts. One is a zero prompt. So that would be, maybe you just put a link in, or maybe you add a document or a picture or just something, or you use sometimes your algorithms, there are pre-loaded prompts in there. So it's kind of using one of those that you're actually not really writing a question at all. Doesn't work in all cases, but that's just one type of prompt that can
I have an example of this. So just yesterday, I was using Publisher Rocket, to look at categories on Amazon. And you can go into, Kindle Spy. I take it back. Kindle Spy, which is the software that you put in your browser, okay? And I'm using both of those tools.
That's like OG software, girl.
Kindle Spy. And you're in a category on an Amazon page in this piece of software. And then you can click to get a market analysis of that category. And it automatically launches ChatGPT with a pre-written prompt that says, this category, these books, write this kind of market analysis. So it's like a prompt that's already done for you, and you just click it and it launches it into ChatGPT and gives you the answer. So I think that would maybe be an example of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. That's a good one. So prompt chaining, Lainey's going to take you through this. So it's basically starting with one question, and then when you get the response, you kind of layer in more details and more refinement. So it's kind of like baking, using a recipe from a cookbook. You do the first step, then you do the second step, then you do the third step, and it just kind of gets closer and closer to where you want, but each step is really specific and precise. So the computer really knows what you're asking. It can give you a really good result. And it's a nice way for you to get really specific and honed into your unique question, without the kind of meandering odd answers that you can sometimes get with the third example, which is a mega prompt. It is one prompt that is kind of long. It can be like thousands of characters. And it's basically act as a editor at a big publishing house who is looking to acquire, this type of genre, tell me the 15 things that this book should have and, make it appealing to, the European and Asian markets. And you just kind of keep going on and give me an answer that's in a list and also has good answers. It's just like a very long prompt. It's very specific. But sometimes the computer gets a little bit crazy, lost along the way, and it'll give you something. You're like, that's not even what I asked y'all. No. So prompt chaining, I think for our audience of this show is probably going to be the way to go.
Yeah, and so I'm going to give you an example of a real example from the last month of me using prompt chaining. And it sounds complicated. Prompt chaining sounds like really fancy, but it's not. But before I go there, let me make one more comment on one danger point with AI. So when I did that analysis, I started in the software called Kindle Spy and basically clicked on analyze this category. And it wrote like a little market analysis using ChatGPT and said like, for example, I was looking at contemporary women's fiction and it said, here are the attributes of best-selling books in contemporary women's fiction. Here's what you want to have in the book. Here's what readers appreciate. Here's some examples of best-selling titles. And then it said, here's a potential title and plot outline of a book that you could write in this genre. Okay. Well, you are not the only person it's giving that potential title and plot outline to. Believe me, everybody else who analyzed that same category got something very similar or exactly the same from that ChatGPT prompt. So I do think that's also a danger point, right? Like originality, assume that if it's giving you a specific idea, like an idea for a book, that it has given it to other people as well. And that if you write that book, you may be one of 50 people writing the same book right now. So just something to think about there, right? Like it was a red flag for me when it came up with that. I didn't ask for it. It just gave it to me at the end of this query. And I was like, what? Interesting. Anyway, let's do a chained query. So like I said, I am redoing my book, The Exit Strategy. And I am trying to work out how to redo the cover. I'm also trying to work out how to redo the back cover copy, because I feel like I now know more about my reader 5 years later, and I have 300 odd reviews. So my thought was, well, can I learn what readers liked in the book and rewrite the blurb based on what people really liked about the book, right? Because I was guessing 5 years ago when the book came out, I'd only had beta readers. Now I have real readers. What could I do with that? So here's what I did. I went to Amazon and I created PDFs of all of my reviews. So page by page, you can't unfortunately you can't do one page with all of them, but page by page, I think it took like 8 or 9 pages. And I just created a PDF of each one. I went print to PDF. So now I had 9 files with all of the text copy of all of my reviews on Amazon. And so I uploaded that to Claude, which is the AI that I use the most. And the prompt that I gave it, I said, I am going to upload a series of PDFs with current reviews. I'd already explained what the exit strategy is, okay? I would like to know what are the novel's greatest strengths based on these reviews. What do readers most appreciate? Oh, look, I didn't say please. Good job. And then it came back and it said, these are the things that readers like. And it gave me like 10 points and said, these are the 10 things that readers like most about this book. And then I put a second query and I said, I'm going to upload the current book description. Based on this, I would like you to recommend how you would change or rewrite this description based on what readers most enjoy about this book. So take what you just told me in prompt 1, which is why readers like it, and tell me against this book description what you would change to get those things into it more clearly. And so it rewrote the book description for me based on that. That's not going to be the final one I go with, but it was pretty damn interesting to see how I could change it to get it more to talk to what ideal readers like. And then I asked it, can you propose some alternate hooks to replace this line? And it had a specific hook line. And I said, I want you to try some different ones. Give me 30 alternate hooks. And it gave me 30 alternate hooks. And then I said, I don't like that. Try this structure instead. And I tried like a 3-point structure for the hook and said, here's an example. And it had it write me a bunch of hooks based on the 3-point structure. And then I said, I was getting very specific at this point. Can you try and bring in the idea that it's not just the husband they take down, but the whole ecosystem of sexism in Silicon Valley? Please don't use the word ecosystem. And it rewrote the hook again and gave me another 10 versions. And none of these are probably exactly what I'll end up going with, but they were pretty damn close. And right. I would have spent days doing that myself. And I did that entire exercise, as you can see, through a series of prompts, very human language. And I think I did the whole exercise in 15 or 20 minutes.
Right. And a few refinements that I could suggest to you in this prompting, just as is the first time I'm seeing them, is that you could also give it the length that you want and how many words. You can also give it the tone. You can say, write the hook to appeal to this audience. If there are specific plot points that your readers like, really highlight those, like you just said, you talked about the ecosystem. So like Lainey was already doing that. And we're saying, I'm going to upload. You would just say, analyze this. It just makes it a little clearer for the computer to understand what you need. And it's not going to waste analyzing, I'm going to upload. So you don't, because when you write a prompt, sometimes, especially if it's longer, the words at the beginning of the prompt get more weight. and the words at the end get more weight, and the ones in the middle get a little lost. So you want those first few words to be really precise to get you going in the right direction.
Great. So I need to have you come and coach me on my prompts because I'm just making it up as I go along here.
No, this is like, I've learned all this just because I'm up to my eyeballs in AI every day at work. So.
Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit more about long prompts? So you said these can be tricky because you don't always get back exactly what you wanted, but can you talk through an example of how you do a long prompt?
Yeah, and this is kind of like the anatomy of what you get. So like I said here, act as if you are an agent at a publishing house. You give it like a goal, like a role. So from a long prompt, you want to talk about a goal. What do you want? Give me a list of 3 types of butterflies that are going to be in the Amazon. So, and what color their petals, listen to me, their wings are. If you're writing a book and you need to do a butterfly. Contact, what is the purpose? Who is the audience? And like I just said, act as a publishing house and you want to know, It gives the computer a role to play in this little scenario you're making. And then it kind of pulls from its vast stores of information, things that are relevant to the audience that you're trying to focus on. Expectations, give it, what are you actually asking for? Lainey was saying, I want a book blurb, I want this paragraph, I want a hook that's this many words. If there's an order you want things in, how long or short, how many paragraphs, do you want a picture? Do you want to, what is the tone of it? Make this a funny thing. Sometimes I'm doing things for work and things sound super serious. I'm like, please make this appealing to salespeople at a sales conference or motivational or, dramatic or, give it the tone of the information that you're getting, that you'd like to get out of the prompt, and then that will just help you get. So basically the long prompt would be a sequence of all of these instructions in separate paragraphs, separate sentences. And the tool, like I use Copilot at work, that goes up to I think 8,000 characters, and that's an agent. You can make prompts pretty long. You can make attachments like Lainey was saying. Also, I have heard that when you make attachments that have words in them, that Word documents work better than PDFs. So if there's an opportunity to create a Word document or like download something from Google Docs in Word, that's a Copilot ecosystem thing. It may not be the same for Claude. I know you use Claude, but that was something that I think that they just build their software to work with their products. And a PDF is typically like an Adobe product, and Microsoft is a competitor. So I think that sometimes the companies make things work better with their stuff. So that could just be one of those Copilot ecosystem things.
Yeah, I do, like, when I can, I will just copy, like when I'm doing the transcripts of our episodes, when I can, I'll just copy the text directly into the query versus uploading it as a PDF. But like in that case where it was all the reviews, like I wasn't going to do the extra work to go take the text and put it into a Word document in order to upload it. It was way easier for me to use the PDFs. But yeah, you can also just copy the text directly into the prompt, and the formatting really doesn't matter.
Right. And then over time, Sammy's going to shoot me. If you get more sophisticated with these things, you can build agents. And if you're going to do the same thing over and over and over, you can just make an agent and you push a button and it'll just, you upload the new reviews and it'll give you the new analysis. So if there's an analysis that you think you're going to be doing many times over, it's worth just following some easy steps to make what they call an agent. And then that will just it'll answer the questions, basically like a menu. You've already told it what you want. You just have to click the button.
Cool. So we're going to do a little sponsor break here. But when we come back, we're going to get more into very specifically, how do we use the different AIs, different tools for different parts of our marketing mix here and our marketing plans. And I'll also give you a few more examples of prompts, and Paulette will tell me how I can get better with them, apparently, which I love. Because I don't do this as my day job, right? I'm learning like everybody else here. So, okay, so let's just talk about our sponsor. So like we said at the beginning, if you're thinking of treating yourself to an investment in your writing, your craft, and also your motivation and building community, there is an amazing retreat happening. It's sponsored by Lynn Galadner. It is here where I am in San Miguel de Allende, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Very safe, very fun, beautiful. You don't need transport. You just walk around the town, very colorful. By the time this happens next January, you will not be in the rainy season, which is what it is right now. It's pouring pouring with rain outside right now. And you get so much in this retreat. So it's limited to just 16 writers, which I really like. And you're basically taking over this little hotel called Casa de la Noche, which is beautiful. It's a guest house. It has tons of little writing spaces inside it. Like there must be at least 10 different little writing spaces in different rooms and areas where you can write. But you also get workshops. You get small and large group workshops. You get one-on-one mentoring. You get a welcome dinner, a final night celebration dinner. You get a reading and dinner with a New York Times bestselling authors, including on Mexican Times, Tony Cohen, who I have not yet met. I hope I get to meet him. A guided visit to the breathtaking city of Guanajuato. I love that. I'm reading the things you get here. Guanajuato is gorgeous. It is one of the most pretty cut cities in the world. It's like all colored. Go Google it. You just got to see it. It's as pretty as San Miguel, but different. Just fantastic. If anyone needs a rooftop bar recommendation, I have a great rooftop bar I can recommend in Guanajuato while you're there. You also get a half day at the hot springs included. You get a Mexican cooking class. You dine on rooftops with rooftop restaurants. You get one-on-one writing instructor time, and the excursions and airport transfers and hotel are all included in addition to all the writing stuff. So it's kind of cool that you get everything included. Like basically you just have to get yourself to the airport and get to San Miguel. There's 2 nearby airports that are an hour and a half from this town. Do not fly to Mexico City if you can avoid it. It's 4 hours away. But there's 2 airports, an hour and a half from here. Once you get yourself to those airports, everything else is taken care of. It's like perfect. You don't even need to worry about it. They pick you up at the airport. They got your meals. You got your hotel. You got all your writing stuff. You got your retreat. I mean, it looks amazing, and all these excursions too. So I kind of want to do it, but then I live here, so that would be weird, right?
Yeah, probably. I know, right?
I will be there. I will get to meet everybody who is at the retreat. I'm arranging my travel around it at the second half of the retreat. My son's actually getting married during this retreat, believe it or not. So I will be in California for that, but I will be back for the second half of the retreat. And I really want to meet the 16 writers who are going to be there. So check it out. It's really fabulous. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it on the website as well. You can find it in our Substack. There's a great article with more details. So let's get back into AI.
Yes. So we're talking about using AI to find book comps. Now, this has been something that I've struggled with. Everyone struggles with this. So we'll each go through one of this. Lainey's going to get us started going through how she used it for book prompts, and then I'll use it. I'll share how I did it. But yeah, so you want to take us away, Lainey?
Yeah, and we had really different experiences with this, and this is a really good example of hallucination. So if anyone doesn't know what hallucination is, here's how I describe it: is the AI wants to please you, so if it can't find an answer, it will just make shit up. Okay, we're already explicit, so I'm going to say the S word. Like, so yeah, it's like it really wants to please, and there's no book that meets the description, so it's just gonna make it up. And the best example of this maybe is that recent article in, what was it, the Chicago Times, where the writer, who was a journalist, basically asked the AI, tell me some number of good books coming out this summer, and every single book was from a known author, but it was a made-up title and a made-up book description. And this journalist did not even sanity check by going to Goodreads to make sure that the books existed. And so he published this article with 10 plus made up books. The AI completely hallucinated the entire set of books. And they all sounded credible and wonderful, and I wanted to read them, but it was garbage. And so this is your risk with something like comps is, you can actually set variables on the AIs for truthfulness. I have not tried doing this in Claude, and clearly I need to. So here's the prompt I went with, and I'll tell you the results I got. So I asked Claude, can you suggest some women's fiction novels that are similar in tone to The Exit Strategy by Lainey Cameron and may appeal to the same readers? And I got a list. I think I asked for 10. I got a list, and I think 40%, so 4 out of 10 were made up. They were not true books. The AI made up the books. And then I asked it, because I was verifying each one on Goodreads and looking at finding the author's website, etc. And that's one of the lessons here, is you really need to verify, okay? And then I asked it, but these books, I can't find them. Do they exist? And it said, no, I'm sorry, they don't exist. Let me give you some different examples. They were also made up. We went through this 4 times, and all 4 times when I said this doesn't exist and it gave me a new example, some of the new examples were also made up. So without modifying the settings on Claude, I actually found it impossible to get a full list that was 100% true based on fact. So I think there's probably, like I said a way to modify the truthfulness settings. I haven't tried that yet, but I think this is where a different platform, like the one you use, Paulette, I always get the
Perplexity.
name. Perplexity. I keep wanting to call it purpose scans. Anyway, Perplexity. I think this is where Perplexity that shows the sources is going to be much better than something like Claude for this. So why don't you explain what you did and how it works for you?
Yeah. So just for folks who don't know, perplexity.ai is a tool that it uses OpenAI, it uses Google Gemini, it uses Claude, it uses a lot of different platforms. So when you get the answer, it's getting the benefit of all of those together. And the free one is pretty good. And I have a business one too for my job, but like the free one is like good. So what I did is I looked up myself. I said, tell me about the author Paulette Stout. And then it get a whole thing on who I am. And that kind of like level sets the prompt in me. And then I was said, give me 10 authors who are like Paulette Stout. And if there's like keywords, like for me, it talked about having that mix between kind of like romance and, kind of like from the headlines theme, social justice stuff, that kind of mix, like who have that. And then it gives me the things. And those authors I ended up taking and putting into an Amazon ad to target those authors. You can also do that on Facebook. You can also do that on BookBub. So you can use these not only just for kind of figuring out your categories and keywords and things like that and your ideal audience, but you can also use it for, marketing specifics. Because sometimes it's like, who do I target and how do I come up with the keywords? And this is a great way to do that. Perplexity also sources everything. It will give you every single source. So then you can kind of go and look and see if the information they said was right, because it will hallucinate. It will tell you something. And then if you click through, I did a search once. It said something. I knew it wasn't quite right. So I checked the source and the source actually said the opposite. So then the second chain prompt was like, is that right? Is that true? Did you make a mistake? Or you didn't give me the full question. Can you finish your question? Like you can have a conversation with it, with the prompt pointing out mistakes, or why did you choose that answer for me in this case? You can ask it questions and it'll kind of give you some background on the reasoning it used to get to that. Then you can kind of feel more comfortable with the answer too.
Exactly. So don't just take anything from an AI as gospel and assume it's right, because
Yes.
you're going to end up like this guy who wrote the Chicago Times article who looked like an absolute idiot.
I mean, just the biggest ass. Like, who does that?
Who does that? Who doesn't even double check something that a computer generated? Like, come on. Anyway.
No.
So what about book blurbs? I know when we had Jessie on, you got to go watch that episode. Fabulous. Jessie Kniff, who's book blurb magic is her firm, and she writes blurbs for authors and helps you modify your blurb. And she was pretty anti-AI for blurbs, right? Having AI write your blurb. She was not down with that. But what do you think, Paulette?
I think that, I've definitely used it, and, there were aspects of the blurb, like, you get the answer. You can upload your current blurb. You can upload like a synopsis. If you're really ballsy, you can upload the whole book. If you have a private files, I know like Joanna Penn always uploads her own books. Give me a book blurb for this book, and so there's lots of different ways to approach it. I think it can be really helpful, because writing a long form novel or a nonfiction book or a memoir is very different than writing snappy marketing copy. I mean, we have backgrounds in marketing, so we have that instinctual way of framing, being concise, getting to the point, starting with the top information up first, and that kind of inverted pyramid of hierarchy but not everyone is comfortable with that. So I really think if you struggle with book blurbs, then, give it a chance and see if you like it. Can sometimes, I didn't think of that. And it can be a prompt for you to refine. You should always refine whatever you get out of the prompt.
Yeah. And I think you have to consider what you're starting with, right? So it's only going to be as good as what you give it, right? So if you say, here's the title of the book and here's what it's about in a sentence, now write me a blurb, it can't, because it doesn't know the plot. It doesn't know the tone. It doesn't. So you have to really think about like, well, what are you going to give it that's going to let it write you a good blurb, right? So like in the example I gave earlier, I gave it all of my reviews. That was a lot of data, right? A lot of information. And therefore it was able to absorb and act and analyze based on all that information. If I did that for my new book that's coming up, unless I gave it the whole book, which I would be nervous about unless I knew I was using, let's say Gemini, which I think Google Gemini doesn't share it. You're in your own sandbox. unless I was using some platform that was in its own sandbox, I wouldn't feel comfortable uploading my whole novel in progress, right? To have it write the blurb. I need to know that that is not
Yes.
going beyond my little sandbox of the internet. So I'd probably have to think about which platform I was using. But unless I gave it the book, what's it going off, right? Is it just rewriting the blurb I wrote? Well, in that case, it's not going to be able to get very far away because it doesn't have more data to go off. So it's only as good as the information you give it.
Right. So, and just to build on that, so if you give it, let's say you have a current blurb that you don't like, you can say, can you write this blurb to be more exciting and compelling to readers of, epic fantasy, or whatever the genre is. I would just make sure that they have the context of who is this supposed to appeal to. And then I like 3 paragraphs. I'd like it to be, I think Jessie was really trying to get her blurbs, I think under like 170 words, if I recall.
Yeah.
I've had 2 sessions with her. I think it was around there, then plus the log line. So just, I want this in 4 paragraphs. I want this in dual POV. I have, or 3 POVs or 4 POVs, what's the best way to structure this? You can say also a question. I have a book with 4 point of view characters. What is the best approach for me to take in the book blurb? And they'll say, oh, you should focus on these characters. Okay, so then when you do the book blurb, so write me a book blurb that focuses on these 2 characters and their journeys and ends with a really punchy line that makes people want to read it, So the more context you can give to the prompt, the better results you're going to get.
Yeah, and I think it would work well with a synopsis as well. If you have a synopsis, I know a lot of writers hate writing synopsis. So,
yes.
But you don't have to give it your whole book. You could give it a synopsis, which is also, if your book is out, kind of public information, right? Like a synopsis is not. I don't know. So yeah, I'd have to really think about putting the whole book of an unpublished book, and I'd feel awkward unless I knew
for sure.
It wasn't going out. Yeah. But I think other people do. So it's just, each to their own.
Yeah, because I think what Joanna Penn has mentioned on her podcast, The Creative Penn, if you haven't heard it, is she write this in the style of Joanna Penn. So she can then start creating content in the style of herself. But it is also like, who else is getting that information? You're 100%. You have to make sure that that's locked down, and not being used to train the models.
Yeah, and we almost called this episode ethical AI for others. And to me, that's an example of where you cross the line. So if I was to say, write this in the style of Kristen Hanna, I feel like that is not ethical, because that AI has taken all of Kristen Hanna's novels and has used them, and now it's regurgitating that to write in that style for me. And actually, that's another example of an author got caught doing that recently, where the prompt showed up in the middle of the book where they had asked the AI to write in the style of another author, and it became a whole thing.
Oh.
And so, yeah, that is not ethical. I'm not down with that. I do not think it's okay.
Yeah, but what you can do is say, my book is XXX. Please write a book blurb that's 4 paragraphs and 1 POV, blah, blah, that will appeal to readers of Kristen Hanna. That's okay. You don't want to copy her work, but you can try to appeal to her audience. And there's a very big distinction between that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's get into, yeah.
So the next little thing, it's the coolest thing ever. My job won't pay for it, so we haven't have it yet, but there's a program from Google called Notebook LLM, and it is embedded in a few other programs. I can't tell you what. It will take written text and create like an NPR worthy interview in like 3 seconds, with like 2 voices, with like, the whole smooth, like you can choose voices and things, but it's just super cool. So if there's something you wanted to do, it's like, oh, here's an interview, a Q&A that you did with somebody, you can upload that and make it an audio file and make it a conversation, of if you want to take a Q&A you did with an outlet. A lot of us do written Q&As just to promote our books. Maybe you can take that, make an audio file, and have another format for that. It's not only gives you more content to use, it's also more inclusive for people who, are visually impaired. They can enjoy that in a different way. So there's lots of more inclusive ways you can think of using AI to bring your message to more readers.
Yeah, my husband, I think this is the Notebook LLM is the Google one. Is that yeah?
Yes, it's in Google. I think you might need to have like some other Google account to get that one, but you'd have to look into that.
So my husband, I don't think he'd mind me sharing this, wrote the first chapter of a memoir. I've been encouraging forever because he has the most fascinating story of his childhood on a commune and traveling all around South America, all kinds of cool stuff. So he wrote the first chapter and he gave it to Notebook LLM. and it created a podcast describing not just this memoir, but describing the moment in time and what was happening in the 1970s and how this related to the general commune movement and how it was the same or different. It was freaking amazing, like NPR style podcast conversation for like 20 or 30 minutes based on one chapter. Blew my mind.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity there for not beyond written and visual into audio and other, times of medium. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I don't have a lot to say because I don't have access to it right now, but there's lots of cool things like Lainey was just saying.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about marketing plans. And then I want to show you some of the different tools that I use, just talk about some of the different tools I use. So the biggest thing it can do is give you a lot of information about your target reader. So if you can identify a couple of comps, if you can have a little bit of an idea of your target reader, it can give you very detailed profiles, right? So even just starting with a category like contemporary women's fiction, and you say, write me a target reader profile of who the likely reader of this category is, it's going to give you age group, emotions, potential occupations. I mean, it's giving you a ton of data. And comps, like we talked about, finding comps for marketing purposes, like for advertising, for example. It also is great for social media plans. You can say, I'm this kind of author. I want to focus on this kind of thing, and write me a 30-day calendar of social media. And then you take that and it says, like, on day 1, do a reel talking about your inspiration. On day 2, do a post talking about such and such. It's not necessarily that you're going to take exactly everything it said. It's not going to write it for you, but it's so much easier to start with a calendar where it says, do this on day 1 and this on day 2 and this on day 3, than to sit there every day going, what do I put on social media today? And so it's still you. It's still uniquely you. You're still creating the content at the end of the day, but you're going against a calendar that it created in 10 seconds flat, as opposed to trying to come up with it all in your head and schedule it and think about it. I think you've used this, right, Paulette?
I have, and the prompt I did, I had it output it for me in a table. So it did give me this prompt. It gave me the text for the post. It gave me the suggested hashtags, and it gave me suggestions for imagery. So, and that was all included in my prompt. And then it like outputted a table. And so I started using that, and some of them are like super specific, and it was gonna take me a long time to make the images. So I didn't kind of like do it, but it was a nice exercise because it's something a lot of us struggle with, to be consistent on social media, to build our following. And just also be intentional about the audience. And I think that that's something I probably will be doing more, because right now I'm really focusing my TikTok account on readers. So that's a little something, because like my Instagram is a little bit of a hot mess. Like I post every damn thing and whatever. I post for the podcast, I post my reading, I post for like if I'm out for a walk, so it's a little bit more of just like where I hang. But I was trying to be more intentional with my TikTok. So I definitely will be, I think, creating a plan a little more intentional to like attract readers. And I think that can probably help me do that.
Yeah, the other thing I've done is ask it for ideas of ways to reach a particular type of reader. So when I'm helping authors with their marketing plans, sometimes they'll have a very unique niche audience, and I'll be like racking my brain going like, where do those people hang out in the world? How do we find those people who are really into fantasy based in Iowa? And I'll actually ask that question, and it will say, well, here's some Facebook groups and here's some places that you might find those readers. So that's really helpful as a way to think about places where those people, once you've done the profile and you know who you're trying to find and what the genre on the book is, where are these people hanging out and how do I go find them? So that's really helpful as well. And then some of the tools that I use, we talked earlier about Pro Writing Aid. I use otter.ai for transcription. So for example, this video, after we're done, I will go upload it to otter.ai and it will transcribe the entire episode for me. And that's what ends up on our webpage. Now, I wouldn't even bother to try and do that myself, right? I'm not going to sit there transcribing the damn episode by hand. So that's phenomenal. And then I take that transcription and I put it in Claude and I say, here's the transcription of the episode. Create 30 social media posts for me. I want 5 that are carousels that have tips. I want 5 that are quotes from the episode that are punchy quotes, and make the rest anything you want. And it will come up with 30 different posts with captions and hashtags and an idea of what the image should be for each one. And then I pick the ones that I like. I don't use them all. I pick the ones that I like, but it's pre-written the caption for me, and it's all off of the transcript that I uploaded. So that's an example of how I use it for the podcast. I also, for the podcast, use a video editing app called Opus Clip. If you notice our format here, we're recording on YouTube and we're recording horizontal, right? We use a platform called StreamYard right now, and it's in horizontal format. But if any of you go look at our Instagram account, we have reels that are vertical format. And how does that happen? Does Lainey sit there and move the thing around and edit the damn video? Oh, hell no. I don't have time for that. I have this platform I use called Opus Clip. I upload this video after we're done here, and it automatically suggests 30 odd small, less than 30-second reels and rearranges the video to put it in vertical reel format for me and puts the text, the captions on it. And then all I do is pick the ones I want, download them, and use them on the social media and upload them to Instagram. So that's amazing in terms of if some things you wouldn't even do. Like I would never do that, sit and edit the video and make it into vertical reels. Like F that. No one got time for that. So that's really helpful. And it also suggests what are the the bits that people will relate to the most, the short snippets that are going to be most interesting for people. And it actually says like, this is why this snippet is more interesting than that snippet. It gives a yes. rating out of 100, which is kind of helpful. And sometimes I disagree, but yeah, so those are some of the tools I use. I said I'd talk about the website. So I just did a website for my publishing imprint. It's called the Colibri Press. Colibri means hummingbird in Spanish. And I went to Claude and I said, Claude, I have a new publishing imprint for my books. It's going to publish books by Lainey Cameron, author. Write me the copy for the website, the Colibri Press. And in 1 minute, I had the copy. I went over to Canva and I said, Canva, give me a template for a website for an author that writes women's fiction in this genre. And Canva gave me a template. And then I put the copy in the template. I chose an image. I already had a domain name sitting for a while at GoDaddy, and it was a one-click connect on Canva to get that domain name onto my Canva site. And so I went from having no website for my imprint to having a website for my imprint using Claude and Canva in, I joke not, 15 minutes. I had the website up and running at my domain name. Blew my mind. I know how long it used to take to do that. If anyone wants to see it, it's the colibripress.com. It's not a site I'm going to be driving people to. I just wanted something that if people went to my Amazon page and they saw my imprint and they said, who is the Colibri Press? And they Googled it, that it would actually show up and be a thing. Free website. I already have Canva, so I'm not paying for it. Pretty much the only thing I'm paying for is the domain name, which is like $15, $20 a year. So that was amazing to me. Like that actually blew my mind how easy it was.
Yeah, and I think that there's so many tools up there that can make our life easier, can make, really quality marketing, platform building pieces very easy to do ourselves. And, we've one of our first episodes of this podcast was all about, publishing on a budget. And this is exactly an example of that, of doing things that you already have in the subscriptions you already own or in free versions and making the most of them. And the other piece I want to say about this is you can see all the work Lainey does to make this podcast really amazing. So you go, girl.
Thank you. And I do love the transcript. Beth is watching us here, and Beth was saying that she uses the transcript, and I do think the transcript's helpful because not everybody wants to watch a whole video, right? Sometimes you just want to get the essentials, and it helps me because I create other content off of it. So yeah, but that's an example of like, we do pay for things for the podcast. So like otter.ai is a paid service that I use for transcription. Opus Clip is a paid service that I use for the video stuff. So it saves a lot of time. Yeah, exactly. The hosting of the website. So buy some merch. Buy some fun merch.
Buy some merch.
Yeah.
Help a girl out. Help a sister out.
And thank you to our sponsor. We really appreciate our sponsors. That's what that does also, is pay for some of those costs. So, well, we are getting to the end of our episode here.
Yes.
I think we've talked about some of the danger points and some of the like hallucinations. Is there anything we haven't talked about relative to like the dangers that you think we should mention?
I don't think so. I just think, be smart, verify your results, rewrite the outputs if you're using it for drafting, and just, go experiment. Don't be afraid of it. Even the experts are still learning. Like I said, I was at Microsoft for like 6 hours last week, and I was asking them all kinds of questions about Copilot, which is their Gen AI agent, kind of their equivalent of, ChatGPT. And they're like, yep, don't know. So, the experts are still learning. So you're not too late. It's totally fine to give it a try. It's like, when I went to college, I was so excited to get a typewriter for my freshman year in college. And I got there and my roommate had this thing called a personal computer. Then she had Commodore. And then the guy across the hall had this thing called a Macintosh computer. And it was like, oh my God, I don't have to retype my paper every time. I can just print it out, So it's like, there are technologies that just shift how the world works. And this is one of those. So you know, we can all have our own moral kind of convictions about this, but you know, I'm not going back to typewriter, but I'm not a worse person because I use a computer than a typewriter, you know, and I think this is one of those, you know, use it or don't use it. But if you want to use it, you should feel confident that there are good ways to do it.
Yeah, and if you've never tried, so I noticed there's a couple of people in the comments, like Mickey is saying, Mickey has fabulous books. Mickey, I'm gonna mess up your middle
Yes.
name, Mickey Bertholli Morency.
Mickey Morrissey. Everyone knows Mickey.
Yeah, Mickey's books are fabulous. I love them to death. They have great characters, the groups of characters. I love them to death. I'll put the link in the episode page so you can check those out. But Mickey was admitting that she hasn't started yet and hasn't used these, and I'm going to give you, Mickey, and everybody a little bit of homework here. Which is, I want you to go to one of these 3 AIs, either Perplexity, Claude, or ChatGPT, okay? Set up your account. We don't care which one you do. We talked about some pros and cons, okay? Go set up a free account, and I want you to ask a question. That's it. Ask a question. Any question you want to ask. You will not blow up the internet. Nothing bad will happen, and that's just as simple as it is. So think about a question you've always wanted to know. Who are my ideal readers? Where should I go market my books? Is my book blurb any good? Whatever you want.
Who is myself, author,
Who is author?
And what do readers say about this person's books? That's a great question to ask.
Perfect.
That was my first Proboscity question. It was about myself.
There you go. So there's your question. There's your prompt as well. So tell me about name of author.
There's your homework, y'all.
There you go. So super simple. You won't blow up the internet, I promise. And then Mickey was also asking, where can we get more information about the retreat? So if you go to our website, bestofbookmarketing.com, go to the episode page for this episode. All the information and links for the retreat are right there. And I will also email you the information, Mickey.
Right. And if you're like wanting to go in the next 10 minutes, you can go to last episode 201 with Heidi, and the link should be there too.
It is both this episode and the last episode. You have all the links for the sponsor. It's a little bit further down the page.
But like you said, there's only a few spots left, so go quick.
Just a few spots left. And so with that, I think we're going to wrap up. This has been a fun conversation. It went longer than I thought. We had a lot to say on this topic. And just a little insight on some upcoming episodes. We're working out the timing, but we are working on an episode on Amazon ads because we did Facebook ads last month. Great episode if you haven't listened to it. We're going to do an episode on Amazon ads. We're going to do an episode on how to market thrillers. And we're open to doing other genre-specific episodes, but I'm excited about the people we have lined up for this one. I'm not telling you yet, but it's some of my favorite authors. We are going to do an episode, like we said, on book cover design. I believe that's our September episode.
Episode. Now, just interrupting quickly, that's going to be on a Sunday night because the guest is in Australia or New Zealand. I can't remember which. So it'll be on a Sunday night. So I know our episodes are moving around. So just follow socials and you'll always know when our episode is going to be live if you want to join us live and kind of ask questions of our guests too.
Yeah. So that one's going to be fun because I will actually share, I'll check they're okay with it, but I think I'll share some of the drafts along the way. So if you do the video version, you can even see some of the versions we went through for the exit strategy, because by then the new cover will be done and out. And after I get off this today, I'm actually going to be getting Paulette's opinion on the first drafts. So I have the first drafts. You can't see them yet, but we're very close to, it's going to be coming out within a month.
Yes.
So.
Great. Well, thank you as always for joining us. Look for us on YouTube and soon on all podcast platforms. Go to our website, support our sponsors, please. And if you're open to it, go buy some Life Gets Lifey merch. It'll help us offset the costs of putting this podcast together.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, Beth. Bye.